Welcome, everybody. It's nice to see you. We got a lot to talk about today. We're going to start off in just a second about a couple of crimes against persons, which, if you guys see in the newsletter, you guys should be getting the newsletter, by the way. If you're just watching this on YouTube or Facebook, go over to christianwarriortraining.com and put out a weekly bulletin about all crime that occurs in the last week at churches around America and a few international stories. There is a lot to talk about when I talk about crimes against persons. Those are your assaults, shootings, stabbings. There's always quite a few, no, I want to say quite a few, but there's always a couple in there every week at churches. And so just like every week, I'm going to talk about the crimes that occurred. We're going to talk about just some details about it. Then I'm going to roll into what you can do to prevent that from happening at your church. Let me know in the chat what you think of this format. Is it working out for you guys? Do you like it? If you don't, put in some suggestions for me. And then, as always, it's hard for me to watch the chat because I'm doing this by myself. So the chat at the end, if you guys have questions, generalized questions about church security, questions about everything from carrying concealed in a church to should we have rifles in church, you name it, whatever. You had a crazy person come into church and cause a problem and you have questions about it, put it in the chat at the end. I'm going to go through everything and I'll answer it for you. My goal is to make sure that you're as well educated as possible so you can protect our churches and our synagogues and keep everybody safe. All right, so let's go with the first story. Let me back up real quick. We're still a condition orange, which means there's a high risk of attack at churches in America. That hasn't changed. It's been like that for a couple months now. There has been many warnings put out by the FBI and others that there is going to be an attack at large venues around America. We have seen each week terrorist attacks thwarted or have occurred around the world, and America has been pretty lucky. We've only had one, and that was that church in Houston where it was somebody inspired by ISIS. She was actually I think she's a little crazy. But we did have one thwarted here in Idaho, where I'm based, up in Coeur d'Alene, with a kid that was inspired by ISIS that was going to attack a church. So we've been pretty lucky, but I think our luck is going to run out. So keep up to date with the newsletter. Head over to christianwarriortraining.com. Do me a favor. It is always going to be free for you. I don't want to keep information about how to keep churches safe from you. But what helps me is if you can do a paid subscription. That helps me, because what it does is it makes it so I don't have to do law enforcement training, and it makes it so I can make Christian Warrior Training my living, and I can put out as much information as I can to you guys to keep you safe. All right, let's go with this Baltimore story real quick. Now, this was an arrest that was made in a 2023 assault of an elderly pro-life activist in Baltimore. If you head over to my Substack, christianwarriortraining.com, and you look at it on the Substack app, I actually have a picture of the victim he's got some pretty significant facial injuries. Now, Baltimore police have arrested a suspect in connection with a brutal 2023 assault of two elderly pro-life Catholic activists. Now, the incident occurred outside a Planned Parenthood clinic where the activists were peacefully protesting. The arrest brings a sense of justice to the case, which had drawn significant attention because of the victim's age. They were elderly, and it was very violent. It was the violent nature of the attack that really upset people. The suspect's going to face charges related to the assault. I have no faith in the Baltimore, Maryland justice system. They are known for letting criminals go free. I would not expect a ton of punishment for this guy. Now, in my newsletter, I put in that you should look at my article that I did on street safety for street preaching. If you look at this article, I lay out everything you need to do if you're going to be street preaching, which would include if you go protest things that go against our faith, like abortions, killing babies. I can understand what make people upset. It makes me upset. It talks situational awareness. I've got another link to another article on situational awareness. You can go down a rabbit hole for a couple hours on this. We talk about always having a partner, looking at people when they're looking at you. I'm actually going to do a class here in the next couple of weeks, hopefully, on pre-attack indicators. I did an article on pre-attack indicators earlier. I'm actually going to turn that into a class. I just gave that class to my church this weekend, yesterday, and I think it was well received. I want to do that class for you guys. As always, that will be free. You'll see that pop when it comes time. ChristianWarriorTraining.com. Sign up for the bulletin. You want to choose the right location when you do it, right? Meaning, like, you're going to protest the clinic, but you want to pick a location that makes it so that you can watch your back and you can make sure people aren't going to come up behind you. You're not going to get hit by a car. Somebody's not going to be mad and run you over, something like that. So pick that location. The big thing, look at pre-attack indicators on people. You can see the attack coming by looking at facial expressions, what they're saying, how they're walking. Go back and look at my article over at ChristianWarriorTraining.com on pre-attack indicators, and I've got a pretty lengthy list there. You do want to avoid physical attacks the best that you can. And I think it's important you do some self-defense training. Even if you are elderly, I think you can get some good self-defense training. My two favorites for Christians that are looking at protecting a church, or you're a street preacher and you just want to protect yourself from being attacked, Krav Maga. It's Kravmaga. It's an Israeli self-defense. I have used that as a police officer on the street. Our defensive tactics involve two things: Krav Maga and then also Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. BJJ was wonderful for us. I think the combination of the two, but if you were just going to pick just one, Krav Maga might be a little bit better for you overall to stop a weaponized attack against you. It would also work well. It's good on striking and stuff like that. It would be very good for you. So if you're new to our weekly live, this is how it's going to go. We're going to talk about the crime, and I'm going to talk about how to keep you safe so that you don't get hurt. All right. So next up, all right, make sure my audio is not on. Cleveland church that is suspending its meal program because there was a shooting in front of the church. Now, I reported on this, I think last week. They called it in as a active shooter. It wasn't. It was just shooting that just occurred out front. So a Cleveland church has suspended its Monday night meal program after a shooting occurred outside the building. The incident raised safety concerns for both volunteers and attendees, leading the church to pause the program while evaluating the situation. The church remains committed to its outreach efforts to the homeless and is working with local authorities to ensure the safety of the community. All right. So when you work with homeless communities, you are more at risk of crime because of those same communities. Now, using good situational awareness, I have articles on situational awareness. I should turn that into a class. And de-escalation practices, learning how to talk to people to calm them down, is going to help mitigate crime from starting. But sometimes there's nothing you can do. So you just have to be more vigilant and have more training than other ministries if you are ministering to the homeless and providing services to them. There is a lot more crime associated with the homeless. Why do I know? I had to deal with the homeless all the time as a police officer, where I was a cop in California. So think about how much homeless there are in California. I was dealing with it all the time. You are going to have, if I were you, I would head over to courses.christianwarriortraining.com. I have lots of stuff over there that's going to help you, look at those pre-attack indicators, look who's got a weapon, right? I talk about when people are walking down the street and all of a sudden they pull their pants up or whatever. It's because they have a weapon on them. And then now, you can just flat out tell them, like, hey, do you have a weapon on you? And most of the time people tell the truth. Yeah, I'm carrying a weapon because, Jimmy John's after me. You can tell them, hey, you're not welcome here because I don't want violence happening here. And you can just tell them that, right? That's up to you. It's your ministry. And if you think somebody is going to bring violence to your homeless outreach program, then tell them to leave, right? That's your prerogative. All right. Next up, we got an intoxicated man that was threatened to burn down a Stafford church and a home. Now, this happened in Virginia. An intoxicated man was arrested after threatening to burn down the St. William of York Catholic Church in a nearby woman's home. The Stafford County Sheriff's Office responded to the threats, which were made while the suspect was under the influence. He was taken into custody before any harm occurred and now faces charges for the incident. Now, alcohol makes people say what they really think. Now, the church is going to want to think about getting a restraining order against this person. You want to take these threats seriously. You should take his booking photo and post it in a place hidden from the public, but visible to all employees and volunteers at the church. Now, everyone should be briefed on what occurred with him, and everyone should be on the lookout for him. Have a burglar and a fire alarm at your place and a 4K video system. And what I like about the burglar alarm and the fire alarm, if here he says he's going to burn it down, I can tell you I've had this a couple times in my career where we get a burglar alarm and then dispatch updates it and it says it's now a fire alarm. Well, I know that somebody just broke in and they just started a fire. So now if they just broke in, police can't drive red lights and siren to that because there's false alarms all the time. It's just something they don't allow us to do. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's the way it is. If there's now a fire alarm in there, more than likely there's going to be an arson. And so now I can drive red light and siren because I got to secure it to get there for the fire department. And it also makes it so I can catch the person too. So that burglar alarm, fire alarm combo, every single church in America needs one. The 4K video system is a nice to have. It helps us identify the people. I cannot tell you how many times there was a crime somewhere and we're like, you got video? Yeah, let me pull it up. And when they show it to me, I'm like, I know exactly who that is because we deal with the same people all the time, right? So that person that we just mentioned, the suspect, they should be the church should monitor this person's release date, which he's probably going to get released pretty quick. And you should monitor his court dates and monitor what is said in court and then relay that to people that need to know at your church. You should also monitor his social media and keep track of new threats to the church. You will find threats in their social media. You can create fake social media accounts that you can use to friend them. I think a good social media account to get would be a female account, right? Don't use somebody else's pictures. Get some real pictures to use in there. Create that fake account and then friend them. And then if they've got it locked down only for friends, you can see it. It's been my experience that people tend to accept a friend request from a female for obvious reasons, right? All right. So next up, we got a naked man creating some chaos, right? So this occurred in Toledo. A naked man. Basically, this guy was arrested for allegedly chasing a woman while naked on Douglas Road in Toledo. Now, the suspect reportedly fled from St. Martin de Porres Catholic Church shortly before the incident. He was apprehended by police after the disturbance. Now, witnesses described the scene as chaotic, and it raised obvious safety concerns for everybody in the area. The man faces charges of public indecency and other related offenses. They are investigating. I don't know what there needs to be investigated. He's running naked down the street. You stopped him. He was probably still naked when you stopped him. So you just hook him up. There's nothing to investigate. It's done. All right. So in police work in general, we have a saying, naked people kill cops. Now, it's sad, but it's true. Naked people are either mentally ill, mentally unstable, or high on dangerous drugs. Now, if you have a naked man in your church, I would wait for the police to deal with it. If you have to take immediate action, I doubt seriously that deadly force is going to be required, but less lethal force more than likely will be needed to deal with them. You're not going to go hands-on with a naked man. Plus, they're all sweaty, right? A lot of times it's drugs, and they just get super sweaty, and when you grab them, they slip out of your hands, and they bite, and it just doesn't work. You're going to have to use some intermediary weapon, right? If you're going to control them. That's why I'm saying wait for the police to come deal with it and just keep your parishioners or your congregation away from the person. Now, if all you carry is a gun at your church and you have no other force options, then your only option is to shoot people. And I mentioned this at training this weekend because my church, we're in the middle of getting pepper spray available to everybody. But one of the comments I always make is, we're only authorized to kill people. We don't have anything else. Now, is it a bit of hyperbole? Oh, of course it is. Absolutely, right? But if all you do is carry a gun and that's it, you're more likely to use a Band-Aid than to shoot somebody at your church, okay? the chances of something like bad happening where you need a gun at church is pretty minimal. It's just not zero, and that's why we do carry a gun, right? But the chances of you using an intermediary force is probably pretty good, to be honest, the way things are going right now. And so again, if all you have is, I'll give you an example. I was on a SWAT team. We did a hostage rescue for a man that shot his wife. When we made entry, we're obviously going to end up having a shootout with the guy that shot his wife. But when we entered, we still had a less lethal shotgun with us. And it was carry, we call him the garbage man. It's the last guy in. It's usually the new guy. It's got to carry everything. And why did we bring it in? And I remember the new guy was complaining, like, why are we carrying this? Because we're going to end up getting a shooting. And when we get sued, because 60% of shootings end in a lawsuit, and they say, oh, well, did you have any less lethal options? No. Oh, so you just went in to kill him? No. Well, then what were you going to do to subdue him then? And I mean, they're right. You should always have other options available to you, even if you probably can't use it, right? So this my 2 cents on that whole, all I do is carry a gun, working in security, right? So make sure you have pepper spray. I like pepper spray, and everybody poops on pepper spray, right? They're like, oh my God, you're going to put it off in the church and everybody's going to be in a mass panic and run out and run people over. Just stop, man. I've pepper sprayed an entire bar at a bar fight before. You know what people tend to do? They stop what they're doing and they lay down, right? I have the mass panic. I mean, you hear about that on the news somewhere. I've never seen that. Are people going to they're going to smell the odor of the carrier and think that they somehow got pepper spray, and that's not what happened. But it is effective. It's minimal training, right? It's a 4-hour training block. It's cheap, and there's no upkeep. You just have to replace it every 5 years. That's easy. Next up would be a taser. Really expensive. And I'm talking about a real taser, not your Amazon, like little stick thing that you poke people with, like a cattle prod. That does not work. That's pain compliance. It doesn't work. But like a real taser that throws out, from the taser company, right? Those are excellent. Number one, I feel that's the number one weapon that works well. That's less lethal. However, lots of training, lots of upkeep, and really expensive, not feasible, right? The next up would be a baton, lots of training. And most of the people that work security are older and have injuries. More than likely, they're going to take that impact weapon away from you and use it on you. So you're left with pepper spray, right? I think it works really well. So my point is, you got a naked man in your church, wait till the police come to deal with it. But sometimes you can't wait for the police because it's just so out of control. Then you're going to need some intermediary force. That pepper spray works best. Okay. All right. Enough of that. Let's move on to the next one. Sexual abuse allegations. Now, Kansas City Deacon has been suspended after a lawsuit was filed accusing him of sexually abusing a teenage boy. Now, the lawsuit filed on August 8th alleges that the abuse occurred while the deacon was at the local church. Their church has taken immediate action by suspending the deacon and is cooperating with authorities as the investigation continues. Now, where there is one victim, there are many. You're going to have to start an internal investigation. Don't interfere with the police, but you're going to start your own internal investigation to determine who the other victims are in this whole incident, because there are going to be more. It's not a witch hunt. It's a calculated investigation that's going to be transparent to your congregation and the public. Now, it's important to do. Whoops. Sorry, let me get that audio off. So they did a good job, suspend the deacon and start an investigation. You have to do an internal investigation next. Talk to the press. I know a lot of you don't want to, and I agree. I personally don't like the press. I see them lie every night, especially now with the election cycle. I mean, it's just lies from everywhere in every direction. I dislike the press. I talk to them when I have to. And I realize that sometimes I'm going to have to. So I will talk to them sparingly, but when I do, if something happens at your church, you need to have a public information officer who goes out and talks to the press, because if you don't talk to them, somebody else will, and they're going to write the narrative for your church. And it is not going to be good for your church. And it's going to make you look bad, worse than you already look bad. And then that's going to hurt Christianity as a whole. And it keeps people from coming to church and worshiping Christ like we should. Okay. So you can release a statement that just says, we're horrified about these allegations. You're not hanging this guy out to dry in case it was a false accusation. You just say, hey, we're horrified by this allegation. We're taking it seriously. The deacon has been suspended until the police finish their investigation. We're doing our own investigation. We will be transparent with our congregation and to the public. And we're going to look into if there are any other victims, what happened, and if we need to change any policies within the church. Thank you for your time. Have a good day, and walk off, and don't take questions. You gave a statement, and now you're done, right? It's perfect. It's what you need to do, okay? All right, unlike this church, all right, if you're part of this church, I'm sorry, I do have some things to help you, though, so don't take offense. Real quick, I am very talking critically of some of the things that are done, and don't take this as I am hammering you in any way. I dislike you in any way. It's that we have to talk about these things so that we can better ourselves. It is critiquing that I think is important to share with each other, so we make sure it doesn't happen with each other. And a good example is this mega church pastor who sent sexual messages to women. Now, the pastor has been exposed by church elders for sending sexual and excessively personal messages to multiple women. The elders disclosed that these inappropriate communications have led to significant concerns about his conduct and leadership within the church. All right, so I talked about this last week, and I mentioned in this because the pastors put out, or not the pastors, but the elders put out saying they removed him. They have concerns about him, and he needs to get his life in order, essentially. And then they said, but it didn't involve children, and it didn't involve like some kind of a physical thing. And it was such a vague, like they were trying to answer questions people were going to have, like, why was he suspended? Right. And they tried to answer it, but it caused more questions. It was a horribly written statement that was given out to the public. And that's horrible, man. I wrote to you last week in last week's bulletin that I want to know what happened. And especially in Texas right now, you guys have some problems in Texas. You have a lot of pastors in North Texas going down for sexual assault stuff. And we need to get our house in order. And when you release a statement that is so vague, everybody's automatically going to assume something bad. Well, there was enough of a clamor that the elders let everybody know, well, he was sending bad messages to women at the church. Awesome. Why didn't you say that to begin with? Now, look, when you're a public figure, myself included, you lose some privacy. I have not had privacy ever because I was a police officer for 30 years. I was a soldier before that in the U.S. Army. And now, I do YouTube plus, I have my ministry going here. I know that my life is a little bit more public than others, and I accept that. When you're a pastor, know that you lose some privacy. That's just the way it is. You got to put it out like, yeah, you can just say that the pastor put out messages that were inappropriate and unbecoming of a pastor, so we've put him on leave or we dismissed him. We will pray for him, in which we should, right? How embarrassing. Your church is there with your picture of you up there that you did some bad things. We're all human. The only perfect person we killed a long time ago. And we are all sinners, right? And it sucks that now you're plastered all over the place. This could have been more low key, but the elders kind of flubbed on it. And we should learn from that. What do we learn from that? Put out just enough information of what occurred that I call it feeding the beast. The beast is the press and the public that reads all this stuff. And you have to feed the beast to make them happy and make them go away. Feed them just enough to make their hunger go away, and then move on and get your church in order. Okay. Just my 2 cents to you. I did write an article in Christian Warrior Training about how to handle press information issues and how you should set that up. So head on over to christianwarriortraining.com, go to the little magnifying glass, the little search bar, and then type in public information officer or press officer, and it'll come up, and then you can read that article. And I think it will help you. All right. Next up, we got a Middletown pastor charged with child exploitation. Now, this happened in Middletown, Indiana. This pastor's been charged with child exploitation. The charges stem from allegations that the pastor engaged in inappropriate activities involving minors. Authorities conducted an investigation that led to his arrest, and the pastor now faces serious legal consequences. My advice to you is have solid policies in place in your church. And I have policies that you can follow for some of this stuff. If you go over to courses.christianwarriortraining.com, I have policies up there that will, form your safety team. I got to get a policy up there about protecting children and women within your church, meaning, like you can't meet with somebody by yourself. You can't be alone with a minor, stuff like that, just to protect the children, which it's the world we live in right now. You have to remember that predators go to churches because of our forgiving nature and our lack of backgrounding people. And they also prey on our forgiveness. So when somebody does something bad, we tend to forgive them. And that includes very heinous crimes. And they take advantage of that. And so we have to protect our children because we're being targeted for one specific reason. Okay. All right. Next up, we got a sex offender that was indicted for arson at an LDS church in Mississippi. Now, a convicted sex offender in Mississippi has been indicted on 2 counts of arson for attempting to burn down the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Wiggins. The man who vandalized the church on July 4th and July 7th claimed Jesus chose him to act against the church due to false beliefs about child trafficking. He faces up to 20 years in prison if convicted. I'm not sure why it took a month to indict this guy, but at least they got him, right? It's very important that you have that burglar and fire alarm at your church. Again, remember, the burglar alarm goes off, then that fire, because they break in to go start the fire. And then when the fire alarm goes off, if they had not dispatched that burglar alarm to the cops yet because they were tied up, most certainly that is now going to be a priority 1 call, which means like that's top tier, and they're going to send people right away. So just something to think about. Once that fire alarm and the burglar alarm goes off, you're going to be flooded with cops in that area looking for people. Okay. All right. Next up, we got 4 Ohio churches that were destroyed by alleged arson. All right. So 4 churches in close proximity to each other in Ohio were recently destroyed by a suspected arson. Authorities are investigating the incidents and have announced a $10,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of those responsible. The fires have caused significant concern in the local communities. Investigators work to determine the motive behind the attacks. Now, look, arson is one of the biggest crimes outside of property crime that affects churches. We should expect more arsons as events occurring in the Middle East increase. People are going to take their frustrations out on our churches and our synagogues, so we should be very mindful of that. Again, this is my weekly reminder that you should have gotten a burglar alarm and a fire alarm last week. Today is not too late. Next week is. You got to get going, people. I mention it every single week, right? All right, this is a new one that we're putting in, and that's drug crimes, because drug crimes are increasing around churches. As you guys know, I'm a former narcotics detective. I was actually California's Narcotics Officer of the Year, and drug crime is affecting churches, so I may start including this. All right, so this is a Millsboro man in Delaware was arrested for drug possession outside of a church. Why is that a big deal? Let's talk about it. So he was arrested on August 5th after being found unconscious in front of God's House of Deliverance Church. Now, upon waking him, police discovered 1.92 grams of crack cocaine 2 grams of powder cocaine, counterfeit prescription pills, which is going to be fentanyl, and heroin. He was charged with multiple felonies, including possession with intent to deliver controlled substances, and was released on his own recognizance after arraignment because that's what Delaware does. They let everybody go. All right. So if you minister to the homeless, this is why it's important. You're going to have an increase in drug use in the area of your church. We're going to have another story about this, and you're going to see where that comes into play. If you come across someone that is passed out like this, you cannot wake them up like a normal person. I know because I've had to wake drug impaired people all the time. You have to be careful. Many of these people are feeling the effects of the drugs or the effects of the drugs leaving their body, and that's going to make them unstable. So I recommend letting police wake them up and moving them along. If you don't want to do that, I need you to keep a distance of 7 to 10 feet so that you have enough time to react to violent actions. So I want you to also be cautious of uncapped needles and broken crack and meth pipes. They will always be around that person when they're sleeping. And if you get stuck, there's all sorts of health hazards for you that you need to be aware of. I will be doing a class as soon as I get time to get into the studio to talk about de-escalating people on methamphetamine, fentanyl, other drugs, how to deal with them, how to talk to them, what those people feel. I think that would help you a lot with this. And if you minister to the homeless, I think it's a must-have class for you. Okay. Next up, we're moving over to Burlington, Vermont. Drug users and the homeless. That sounds like California. All right. A pastor in Burlington, Vermont has described his church as being under siege due to increasing issues with drug users and homeless individuals occupying the property. The situation has led to safety concerns and disruptions prompting the church to seek assistance from local authorities. The pastor emphasized the need for a balanced approach that addresses both the safety of the congregation and the needs of the vulnerable population. I'm going to be perfectly clear here. You can't have it both ways. Okay. If you don't hold drug users accountable, they will not stop using drugs. The only way that they're going to stop using drugs is if they hit rock bottom. And that usually happens while they're sitting in jail. How do I know? Because I watched California legalize drugs. I have helped many people, hundreds of people, get off of drugs during my life. I would arrest people for drug crimes, misdemeanor, I mean, not misdemeanor, but personal use drug crimes. And I would do it because I know, but because back in the day, it forced them to go to drug rehab. And if they successfully did drug rehab, they got their record expunged. It was perfect. And then California took that away. And then now pretty much drugs are legal. I know there's people in California saying it's not legal. It's a misdemeanor now. No, man, it's legal. The DAs are not charging drug possession. So like nothing's happening. All right. So the problem is now we're enabling people to do drugs and we're not forcing them to go to rehab, because why would I go to rehab when I can keep doing my drugs? There's no penalties, right? So when I see pastors say like, we want to be compassionate, but I need them gone. Look, pastor, you're going to have to pick one or two, right? I want to be compassionate too. Absolutely. But what I have learned is they have to go to jail, sit in jail where they are forced to be clean because they're sitting in jail. And then when they're clean, I cannot tell you how many times as an ARC people called me from jail saying, I want to turn in all my drug dealers because I don't want myself to fall back into the same trap. I'd take their information. I'd go arrest a bunch of drug dealers. And then when they came back, I'd have people come up and tell me later, thank God you arrested those people. I've been able to stay drug free. Just my 2 cents. I hope that you know that it's educated. I'm telling you right now, harm reduction and giving people needles and crack pipes, that doesn't help. Okay. We can certainly take care of them and help them get into drug rehab, but you're going to have to pick it out, man. All right. Next up, we got a guy that stole a police car. Watch the video. I'm going to play the video while we do this. So, the stolen police car crashed into a church in New Haven. A stolen police car was driven into the steps of First Calvary Baptist Church in New Haven after the suspect took the vehicle during an arrest attempt. The car struck the church stairs, causing significant damage, but no one was inside the building at the time. The suspect, who had been arrested earlier in connection with another crime, managed to flee on foot after the crash. Police are continuing their search for the individual. All right. So this is a bit of advice for my cop friends that are watching. Make a copy of your car keys or your key fob so that you can lock your door while the engine's running and then you can step away. Now, people are wondering, like, why would you leave? People that aren't cops are like, why would you leave your keys in the car? Because we have so much equipment in there. The car has to be on because of the computers, the lights, everything else. If we shut it off, but all that stuff stays on, it's going to kill the battery in about 5 minutes. So uh, back in the day when I first started in 1990, yeah, man, I can turn the car off. But today, that ain't going to happen anymore. So I make 2 copies. I leave my keys in the ignition. Everything's on. I lock the door. I got a key to get back in there. Just my 2 cents. Hopefully that helps you. Just hoping that experience helps you in some way. All right, next up, property crimes. We got an arrest that was made in connection with a church break-ins across West Virginia. 25-year-old man from Hamlin, West Virginia, was arrested for multiple church break-ins across Lincoln and Cabell counties. The suspect was apprehended at the scene of a break-in in Summercode Church of God in Yawkey and is linked to incidents at numerous other churches since April of 2024. Authorities are charging him with breaking and entering with additional charges expected as the investigation continues. Now, again, my weekly reminder, you need a burglar alarm, a fire alarm, and a 4K video system, all right? I don't know. Oh, there's that bear story again. Look at that. Tell me the press isn't all interconnected. Look at that. All right, next up. A Newark man was arrested for stealing from Bayonne Church. Newark man was arrested for stealing between $200 and $300 from a collection box at a church in Bayonne, New Jersey. The theft occurred on August 7th when the man broke into the church and took the money. Police quickly identified and apprehended the suspect, who now faces charges related to burglary. Sorry, man. All right. So, look, I wrote an article, 5 steps you can take to protect your church offerings. My recommendation is that you look at this, and we might turn it into a course, but number one, the importance of security awareness. Just look around and keep track of what's going on. All right, implement an armed security team. Some of you guys can't do that. We don't want to shoot people for property crimes anyways, but there's a little discussion about that. You want to vary your schedules for deposits. You want to strict knowledge of financial transactions. You want to do frequent audits. You want to enhance your security measures. I listed all out, everything that you can do. General reminder, if you like an article, hit that little button right there. Lets me know you like it. Lets me know I'm on the right path for something, all right? All right, next up. We're going international now. A UK teen school attacker claimed he got a calling from Jesus. A 16-year-old in England was arrested for planning a violent attack at his former school, inspired by what he claimed was a calling from Jesus. Now, the teen brought multiple weapons and was intercepted before he could carry out the attack. He expressed beliefs that he was divinely instructed to take action, leading to significant concerns about his mental health. All right. So, look, I think the biggest threat for churches right now is that insider threat, meaning like the kids from within, the mentally ill from within that we minister to. So you want to keep an eye on your youth, and then you should probably keep one security person in the youth area during services. I know we do. We do it to protect the children. So if the active shooter does kick off, there's automatically somebody right there where the children's wing is for all the kids ages 0 on up to teen. And they've got to go through this, armed security officer to get to the children. The other thing that occurs, and we know it, a lot of times, I'll give you, we have problems from the kids every once in a while, just like your church, right? Kids are kids. They're going to be stupid, and they're there to stop them from doing something stupid. We have had, we've had we had one kid go out and start a fire in the bathroom. Why? Because he's stupid, right? Just kids do stupid things like that, and we're there to stop them. We talk about frequently the possibility of an insider attack from within. Somebody's mad and they're going to go seek vengeance while they're at the church. And so you should just put that in your scenario planning and be ready for that. Okay. That insider threat is real. All right. Next up, Indonesia. Authorities foil a plot to bomb churches. Now, authorities in Indonesia successfully thwarted a plot to bomb multiple churches, preventing what could have been a devastating attack. Now, the planned bombings were part of a broader attempt to target Christian communities in the region. Indonesian security forces arrested the suspects before they could carry out their plans, ensuring the safety of affected communities. All right. So we're seeing more and more stuff like this in Southeast Asia and Africa. Each week, multiple Christians are murdered in mass attacks in both areas because of Islamic extremism, or, I mean, even just sometimes it's the government. Um, we should look at these attacks and think this is how they're going to do things here in America if they decide to do an attack here. On a side note, see, look, man, that whenever I put my head right here, it looks like I'm a Martian and I have like antenna up there. All right, side note. I'm concerned about those churches in Africa, and I'm concerned about those churches in Southeast Asia. Some of them have reached out to me, and I would like to help them. I want to know in the comments, for those of you that do missions overseas, have put anything of that together, how does that work, right? Because I thought to myself, just Keith Graves sitting here, like, let me think, what can we do to help those churches? And I think, like, what would a mission look like? Where we went to Africa or Southeast Asia and help churches with their security needs. And I mean, obviously, a lot of these places can't have guns, but there's things that you can do. We can harden the church, and we can show them how to harden it, and we can harden it for them. And we can talk about putting lookouts out, how to do intelligence gathering and stuff like that to protect our people. But I don't have any experience with anything like that. And I know a lot of you guys are missionaries and have done some really cool work. Let me know in the chat what you think and how that would look like. And if something like that is feasible, just what do you think? Let me know. All right. Let me run over to the chat. I'm sorry I can't look at the chat at the same time. It's very difficult. Ooh, got a lot of chats. All right. Let me run through this. All right. Here's the one that shows up all the time. Am I going to be on Survival Dispatch News tonight? I am not. I love Survival Dispatch News. If you guys haven't seen it, they got kicked off of YouTube, but they're over on Rumble. And they're over on Clout Hub. Go to CLOUTHUB.com. They're on Clout Hub. They have hundreds of thousands of viewers over on Clout Hub. I love hanging out with Chris and the rest of the gang and talking about modern events. I talk about it in the views of a police officer and a Christian, and what people can do to prepare, get ready, plus the current events. I love it. Head over there. I like doing that. I can't go all the time because I'm so busy. Like this next week, I'm meeting with potential advertisers and some other stuff. So and plus family time, right? Family's number one for me. So Survival Dispatch News, I'll be there as much as I can, man. All right. So this is a good question. All right. Who sets the alert levels? Condition orange, whatever. It's me, just me. Why am I doing that? Because I have asked the bodies that should, number one, the federal government's not doing it anymore. They gave up on that system. If for those of you of a certain age, you remember in 2001, 2002, America came up with an alert system, the exact same one I'm using right now, but they stopped using it. Okay. Probably because somebody didn't want to look bad in the government, right? Why help the people? Why would you do that? There are people that represent church security, and I've asked them, like, hey, you guys should do this. And there was no interest. And I think it's important because it helps people visualize where we are at. How do I come up with where we are at condition orange? I listen to what the government is saying, and I'll give you a prime example. Number one, ISIS has come out and said they want people to attack churches and synagogues, and people have been coming out and doing that. And we've foiled some plots. So right there, that's condition orange. Also, interesting. You listen to FBI Director Wray. I think the FBI is a very messed up organization. I don't think it needs to be disbanded, but it needs to be torn apart and start all over again because they do have a lot of corruption, and they don't want to admit it. And I have worked extensively with the FBI in the past on drug cases. With that said, Director Wray, I take everything he says with a grain of salt, but he slipped up a couple times, and he has said, we are at high risk of attack in America at large venues, including churches and synagogues. He has said that. I put that out all the time on Christian Warrior Training on the newsletter. Whenever he says it, I put it out and I let you guys know. Sometimes I do a video here and I will play the sound bite where he says that. He went old school when he says we're at high risk of attack, and he went back using our old verbiage. And you should. So I listen to these things, and I have a background in intelligence. I've been doing intelligence for most of my career. I make a living doing intelligence. Okay. And so I take open source intelligence to figure out where we're at. And that's how it comes up. That was a great question. Naughty step. What's up with that handle? All right. Let's see here. All right, hold on a second. All right, good question from BCC2A. Always supporting the 2A. All right, we should all know that BCC2A was the first person in the comments. Good job, buddy. All right, so what's the best brand and type of pepper spray? Anything that's in your hand, right? So we had this discussion yesterday with my team. Some people are carrying gel pepper spray. Um, people will carry gel pepper spray because it will confine the misting effect that you have with some pepper sprays. However, and I'd never encountered this. I've pepper sprayed a bunch of people, and it's been very effective for me. With that said, my son was a deputy and worked in the jail, and he goes, "Yeah, man, don't have. I never had gel spray. I always had regular spray." He's like, "Yeah, Dad, don't ever carry gel because what the prisoners do is you'll spray them and they just wipe it off and then get back into the fight." And I was like, "Dang, I never even thought about that, right?" Because I've never had gel; it's never been an issue, but that makes a lot of sense. So, first line defense is a pepper spray that I use. It's a company owned by Safari Land. It's what I carry on duty. Works really well. I would recommend doing a spray. You don't have to have like the big Costco size fire extinguisher looking thing, right? Where you're going to hose down everybody. Just get the little can about that big, put it on a nylon pouch on your belt, so if I'm right-handed, okay, I have my gun on the right side, my pepper spray and my radio are on the left side. So you always want to be offhand and grab it and go. Okay. Um, all right. Michael 223, another Texas church. All the time, man. Texas. I don't know what's in the water over there, but pastors have been going down like crazy for sexual assault, man. So we keep seeing this. A lot of people are recommending pepper gel. If that's what you want to use, then use it. I can tell you right now, though, that convicts, right, cons, are going to wipe it away and throw it down, and it's not going to be as effective. Okay, just my 2 cents. Sorry, just keep looking. You guys are all answering good questions in there. I appreciate it. We'll probably do a pepper spray video coming up. I got some guys over at Boise Krav Maga. There's a biker over there that lets me beat the crap out of them with pepper ball guns. We did the Byrna. Byrna did not work. We're going to do a review on that when I get time. The Byrna was crap. I will not recommend Byrna, but I'll do a breakdown video of it later. Byrna was very, very bad. And it did not stop this biker guy. Even the kinetic rounds didn't work. Bear spray. If you guys see me on Survival Dispatch, we talk about what to do when you're stuck, surrounded by a bunch of people. Bear spray goes farther in a wider mist. I would not use it in a church. It would be bad for church. But for your personal protection, like to have it in your car or something, it goes a really long way and it goes really wide. It's a good way, like if you're stuck in a protest and people are starting to attack you, it's a good thing to have, right? All right. Yep. Amazon. I got all my pepper spray from Amazon. Okay. So Eric asks, what area of Ohio were those churches burned? I don't know where that was. Where did they say? Here they're saying it's Gallia and Lawrence County Sheriff's offices. So in those counties, that's the 2 counties. It does concern me that 4 churches were burned to the ground. That is bad. Sean replied that he thinks it's around Cleveland. I don't know that area. So, all right, hold on. Just reading what you guys have. Oh man, Alyssa, thanks. She's answering my question about doing outreach and stuff. I appreciate that. Just reading what you got. Oh, here's a good one. All right, good question here. I don't have a Saved by Grace. Oh, I love that. That's a great name. That was better than the step one that was up there earlier. All right, I don't have a gun. So what should I do as a single 57-year-old? Number one, the most important weapon, and it sounds stupid, is your brain, and just avoid problems, right? Have good situational awareness. And then, because you guys, if you watch me on Survival Dispatch, one of the things I talk about all the time is the human is the only animal on the planet that doesn't run when it senses danger. Okay. And I see people, if you guys went over Christian Warrior Training, I did a breakdown of a shooting in New Zealand where about 50 people were murdered in a mosque. And I broke down bit by bit. I have the shooter's video and I break down bit by bit. It's for paid subscribers only over there just because I had to hide it from people who don't like the video. I did a breakdown of how there was poor situational awareness that you could have avoided it, right? So Saved by Grace, the biggest number one thing is have good situational awareness. Number two, if you want a weapon, taser. If you go to their website, they have a civilian taser. I kind of dig it. All right, and let me tell you why. So a police taser, when I shoot somebody with my taser, it's on for 5 seconds and then it automatically shuts off. Now I can turn it back on, but a lot can happen until I turn it back on, and I'm only allowed to cycle it 3 times, and that's it for a total of 15 seconds. After that, I have to do a different kind of force. All right. The civilian taser is on for 30 seconds. 30. And if you've ever been tased, you know how horrible that 30 seconds is going to be, that it's going to cause some horrific trauma for the rest of your life, because you'll remember that 30 seconds like nobody's business. It will seem like an hour by the time that thing shuts off. And it is more powerful than the police one because it's meant to shoot somebody attacking you and then to drop it and run. So the thought of it is shoot them, it turns on, I run. By the time it comes off, I got a 30-second head start. I would not run. I would have it cycle through, and I would say, stay on the ground or you're getting another 30. And then just keep going until the police show up, right? Unless you were in a state that has a duty to retreat. If you live in one of those states, I recommend you move because the government is trying to kill you at this point. But I like that civilian taser. Minimal training. You can watch a video online, buy a couple of practice taser cartridges. Phenomenal. The cheapest version with the least amount of training, pepper spray. I am a huge pepper spray fan. Do other people get it sometimes when you spray it? Yes. That's okay. It happens. You're being attacked. You have to do what you have to do. Okay. So don't worry about it too much. Sean, maybe I'm going to get rid of my gel then. This is my recommendation. Look, I haven't used gel. I've only used spray. I get the concept of using gel. I've just heard a lot of cops since I've asked other cops that have worked corrections, and they've all told me the same thing. They just wipe it off and go to the fight. And I was like, I'd never even thought about that. That was never, I don't know. I didn't think about it. If you're a cop and you've had that experience, go to the chat, let us know. It's pretty interesting to hear those stories. I've never had gel, so I haven't had that experience. All right, here we go. From Ty, is the FBI too busy chasing abortion protesters and concerned parents at school board meetings to search for foreign terrorists? They're also going after the Catholic Church. I am wondering, I don't know if you guys saw recently, not to make this political, but I think it's important for us to talk about because you are going to get persecuted because you're a Christian. It says so in the Bible. I don't know if you saw Tulsi Gabbard, representative from Hawaii. current Army reservist, Iraq War veteran, who ran for president of the United States, was recently put on a watch list by the TSA. So when she flies, 3 TSA agents are on the plane to watch her. That I have never seen the bad things that are happening now. And then the agents, now it was a TSA agent that came out and blew the story on this, from my understanding. So there are good people that are blowing the story on it, but it kills me how many feds are actually acquiescing to some of this bad stuff that we're seeing. I don't know, man. Christians should be careful. It is what it is. Here's a good one. Eric, do you recommend tactical strobe flashlights, and where would you carry it? I would. And I'll tell you why. I thought it was a gimmick when I first saw it, right? When they first came out. I got a weapon mounted one for I had a Glock 35. And I was clearing a building. And when I was slicing the pie and I came around, there was a dude there. Didn't expect to see him. And I was like, oh no, like, am I going to get in a shootout? Like, what's going to happen? And when I turned it on the light, I fumbled a little bit and I activated the strobe feature. The guy literally looked like he was dizzy. He was kind of disoriented and he fell to the ground. And I was like, police, stay on the ground. Now prone yourself out. And he did. It was true. Like, you could see that disorientation and he fell. I've used it on other people and it didn't work. But I've used it on a bunch of other people on handheld versions after that. And it's normally when you surprise them, right? And you hit them. It has I've had some good effectiveness to it. It is good for disorientation. I thought it was a gimmick. Dang, it worked, right? All right, I'm sold. It's pretty cool. I would recommend it. Always keep those types of things on your you're not supposed to say weak hand side, but your weak side, right? So, or your non-dominant side. So my dominant hand is right. I put my radio, pepper spray, anything, spare mags, everything else, it's on the left side. So that way you have a clear way to get your gun out. You've got, let's do this. So I've got my gun out. And then if I've got to do anything at all, I'm grabbing it. Like, if all of a sudden there's deadly force isn't authorized, right? I can come here, grab my pepper spray, transition, spray them, and then I can come back if I need to, whatever. You just want to keep that clear, right? Good question. So another good one, Tracy, if you use pepper spray, is it a one and done? Yeah. I mean, you're going to buy the littler ones because you don't want to carry a big one. That's just too much, right? So I would, and they're cheap, right? If you use it, ditch it because you now have less in there. And more is not better with pepper spray, right? You want to do just one coat and then you're done on a person. If you keep hosing them down, the liquid is a carrier. And so that liquid carrier is actually going to wash the pepper particles off, and it's not as effective. So you do want to, once you use it, it's done. Use that one for practice, right? And then go purchase a new one and you'll be good to go, right? Okay. Saved by Grace again. Can you get arrested for protecting yourself with pepper spray? Pennsylvania is liberal where I live. You can get arrested for misapplying pepper spray. Okay. There is always a risk of you protecting yourself in self-defense. Guys, this weekend, I forgot to mention, on Wednesday, I finally did all my insurance reviews. I looked at all the major plans. I picked one that is great for church security. I really like them. I'm going to announce who that is on Wednesday. So make sure you're subscribed and ready to go. So can you get arrested for protecting yourself? Yeah, always, man. Look in California right now in Alameda County. Pamela Price is a district attorney that's backed by George Soros. Man, this is going to get demonetized. I'm saying all the bad words in here. She is prosecuting multiple cops in that county for murder that were clearly self-defense. So if they're doing it to us, are they going to do it to you? Yes, that could happen. But your life is at risk. So you're going to have to do what you're going to do. Just remember, I always told my cops after they were involved in a shooting, No good can come from talking to the police, even when you are the police. Okay? Keep your mouth shut. You got to get a lawyer. It's going to cost you about $180 a year through the plan that I'm going to tell you to use. You can choose it or not. It's up to you. It'll be about 130 to 180 a year, depending on what plugins you get with that and stuff. And the nice thing about it is they provide a lawyer right away if something happens. So if you use any kind of a weapon for self-defense, right? So saved by grace. Expect that could happen. Okay. At some point, it might be good to talk to the police so you can say, look, I was in fear for my life and this is why I used it. But let the witnesses speak for you until you get a lawyer there to give you a statement, right? So here we go for Shania. Question, what is going on with all these stabbings? How can you best defend yourself from getting stabbed? Any tips? So there are a lot of stabbings here, but they're off the hook in England right now, mainly because that's the only weapon that they can have in England. So that's what people use. So you guys know I am pro Second Amendment. I mean, obviously, right? If you take guns away, people are just going to replace it with something else. The best way to avoid a knife attack, again, is that situational awareness. You're always going to have a pre-attack indicator before you get stabbed, okay? They are going to reach into their waistband and start like readjusting, or they're going to have to reach and grab the weapon. So now you're going to create distance, right? They are, while you're talking to them, they're going to like feel for it, right? And like there's just little things like that. They're going to tell you that person's probably going to have a knife. You should always be looking around. What's a place of cover that I can go to? Where can I like go into a room and lock the door so nobody can come get me? Situational awareness is your number one protector against anything like that. I need to do a video on ballistic vests for church security. I don't have my vest here. They're concealable body armor. You can buy a concealable body armor that will protect you against handgun bullets up to 44 Magnum, which is pretty big. And some of them will stop stabbings as well. Now, that's just for your torso. It doesn't help if you get cut in the leg or the hand or the face or shot in the extremities, but it is something, right? Just looking. So, all right. So SDN is Survival Dispatch News. If you guys aren't following them, please do. They're pretty good people. If what that is Survival Dispatch News, is the CEO of Survival Dispatch, which is Chris Heaven. He brings in like former SEAL Team 6 guys, CIA guys, myself for SWAT and stuff like that. And we just talk about current events. So they talked about Fifth Ops has a pepper spray grenade that kind of works like a bug bomb. Would not use it in a church environment. However, for self-defense, I have used pepper grenades on SWAT operations, and I can tell you that they are very, very effective. I have been in a home where we pepper grenade a guy, and we were wearing masks. We could feel our skin burning, no big deal. But that guy was choking and he was not going to hurt anybody. And then we can work safely to go get him. I think it's a great tool. All right. So, Michael, as far as which coverage to go with attorney on retainer. No, do not. And I'll tell you why. They are an actual law firm that will work with your local attorney through Pro Hack Vice. All right. So, look, this is why I did not pick attorney on retainer. They will only provide an attorney after you are charged. That is an absolute no for me, 100%. Okay. I was involved in, if you're involved in a self-defense shooting, more than likely is advantageous to you to make a statement to the police so you can describe how you feared for your life. That's how you're going to get the justify a homicide. Okay. Usually that's only going to happen because you say something. But if they're only going to cover me after I've been charged with a crime, there's a lot of bad stuff that can happen in between. And I got to tell you, they were really nice people and I had great conversations with them. And I talked to them about that specific thing. And they were very direct, like, yeah, we'll put an attorney on the phone for you, but we're not going to provide anybody in person until you've been charged. That is absolutely a no-go for me. There is everything wrong with that. Okay. And I'll give you an example. Police officer gets involved in a shooting, and people say, like, I wish I was treated like the cops when they get in a shooting. No, we get treated worse because we don't have a Fifth Amendment right, much like you do. They can compel us to talk, and you don't have to. So it's worse for us. But look, when we're involved in a shooting, the attorney shows up right away. We talk to him, and then he either says, no, don't make a statement because you're dumb and you're probably going to get charged. Or he says, oh man, you're clear. And then the attorney goes and talks to the investigators and says, this is what happened. There's some behind the scenes stuff that you guys don't realize happens. So the attorney is going to say, this is what happens, but it's not you saying it, right? And then they chat and they talk about that, and the investigator goes, okay. And they go back and re-interview witnesses, and now they never have to talk to you. Or they go, we talked to all these witnesses. Here's discovery. Here's all the information that they said they saw. Your attorney reads it and says, go ahead and make a statement. And he sits next to you, and then he'll intervene if the question goes far. You just talk slow, and then he'll tap you and say, like, stop right there or whatever. But attorney on retainer will not give you that opportunity because they will not give you somebody until you've been charged. Do you see the problem with that? And I hope you guys understand that, because there's a lot of fans of attorney on retainer. I am not slamming them. If they fix that, I would change my opinion about attorney on retainer 100%. And I'd be like, yeah, they're great. But they are not, because of that one simple thing. And I know it's hard for some of you to conceptualize because you've never been in a situation or seen anybody in a situation like that. It's going to be really, really uncomfortable. Okay. So just, Michael, my 2 cents, I want you to think about that one thing. Okay. All right. Next up. Not of this world. So I love your icon there. Thanks for all you do. How are you feeling? All right. So good question. How do I feel? Right. I put out that video a couple months ago that I'm sick and I have a lot of problems. I'm still sick. I'm going to live with it for the rest of my life. Does it cause me problems? Yeah, man. I taught a class yesterday for 4 hours and I was done and I was asleep the rest of the day. So it is causing me problems. I'm just learning to work around it. And, I'm just thankful that I have all of you and I have our Lord and Savior that is taking care of me, right? This makes me happy. Your channel has helped me. Thank you, Saved by Grace. That makes me happy. All right. Next up question. With children going back to school and with so many rapes taking place in our country, what tips would you give our children to try to best protect themselves from a rapist? I would, if you can afford it, send your kid to Krav Maga and have them learn Krav Maga or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I would do Krav Maga first because it's great self-defense, like with weapons and stuff. It teaches them discipline and it teaches them situational awareness, which I can't emphasize enough how important situational awareness is. And how your kids are going to use that situational awareness to protect themselves, and then how they can defend themselves against an attacker. Those are the biggest things that you can do. Okay. And then also talk to them. We always told our kids. My kids are all grown now. My son's an investigator for the state. My daughter's a teacher for 3rd grade. It's nice hearing them talk about things that we taught them. And they're like, yeah, we had an abnormal childhood because you were very open about like real world stuff. So we told our kids, like, nobody should ever touch your private parts. I would take them to San Francisco and we would see all the dangerous people all around us. And I'm like, keep your head on a swivel and start paying attention. You're going to get hurt. And I would ride Muni, which is the horrible transit system all across town. And we would see the transients get on with, that crap their pants and peed themselves. And my kids are like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, you want to have situational awareness to make sure you don't get that man's poop on your body, right? Pay attention, right? And so we forced situational awareness upon them. And then, my son, we sent to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to learn that. That was really good for him, taught him discipline, and then how to end a fight quickly. We taught people nobody should ever touch you. You shouldn't be alone with another adult. If so, it has to be appropriate. If you ever feel uncomfortable, run away. Or if you feel uncomfortable and you're at a friend's house, then call us and just say, I'm good to go on a text. And we know that phrase, you are not good to go. And then we drive to the friend's house and say, hey, I got an emergency. I need to take my kid with me because my dad's in the hospital. And when the kid jumps in, you're like, my kids have done this twice to me. I'll be like, what happened? And for my kid, it was like they were smoking marijuana in the house. And I know that you don't approve of that. And I'm like, absolutely not. Thank you. Let's go get some ice cream. Good job. And it was the parents that were smoking weed in the house. And my kids knew that I did not like that. Another one of the kids pulled out their dad's gun and there was no adult supervision. And my kid knew gun safety and called me up and said, hey, I'm good to go. All right. And I raced over, picked him up. And when he walked out, I'm like, what are they doing? And they're like, they're playing with a gun. Oh, shit, I need to get in there and stop that. And so I went in there and stopped it and scolded the parent for leaving access. So I think those are some of the best things you can do for your kids. Just my 2 cents. I think it worked out real well. All right. So Chuck Jr. says CCW safe for insurance. I looked at them too. They did not make the grade. And I break it all down on Wednesday. And I know some of you have this insurance. I'm telling you right now, if you have USCCA, dump that like a hot potato, man. All right. But there's a lot of others. They're good. CCW safe, they're all right. But for church security, they're not all right. There's better ones out there. Right. And so I break it all down for you. Okay. Shania, thank you. Thank you for all the hard work you put in your channel. Thank you. I do put in a lot of hard work. I appreciate that, man. All right. All right. This is a good one too. What's my take on bulletproof backpacks from Sean? I think they're great. I would give that for my kids, to be honest. My kids, I actually took my old body armor because we have to get new every 5 years. We have to get new body armor. I kept mine, and then I would put the inserts in their backpacks. And then that way they knew that if they were, they could take their backpack off and hold it in front of them. But as far as like, there's backpacks for like, if you're thinking like church security, where you're like going to pull it out and then have body armor like that, I would not, because you got to carry that backpack all the time and it's super uncomfortable. And the chances of you needing that are pretty slim. And the injuries that it's going to cause over time of like hurting your back and everything else, I probably wouldn't for church security, but for my kids, I would. Right. All right. Krav Maga. You're close. It's KRAV, like Victor Maga. Wonderful system. All right, guys. My son is coming over in 10 minutes because we're going to go work on his new car. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time with my son. He's an old man now, but I like hanging out with him. And I got to spend some family time together. And we've been at this for an hour and 13 minutes. My God. Good info, man. I love this community. You guys are freaking awesome. You guys make me happy. I love doing this. Do me a favor, head over to christianwarriortraining.com. Lots of good info coming out every day, including on Wednesday, the single best program for insurance for church security team members to cover you in a self-defense shooting. I took months to figure this out. So head on over there, subscribe, leave a comment, help me out with some of that. The big question I have for you that I want you guys to help me with: what would a mission look like? I need to know those answers. So that's all I got for now. The most important thing you can do to protect your church is, number one, to pray. That's the number one thing, right? Never cease praying. Number two, remember your ABCs. Always be